the glass panes.
Yeah.
Why? Like they were reachable from the platform that you were on, right? You could have quite easily laid down and slapped one of those panes to see whether it would have taken. Because a normal piece of glass, like based on them jumping on it and then it giving way, would have 100% smashed if you'd have just twatted it on the edge.
If life's that shit, right, and you've gone through one of those games, like you've seen everyone just being shot, and you get a chance to go home, and you think, right, the choice is I can go back because I still owe debt. Now you're absolutely willing to kill someone to survive, knowing that's what's going to happen if you go back to earn that money. So what's the difference between you plucking up the courage to go and either kill the people that you're in debt to, if they're individuals, or figure out a way of getting money in the real world because you've obviously got the balls to go back and play this game and knowing that the chances are there's going to be consequences. Let us know if you've got any issues. Squid Games. You want to talk about Squid Games? Have you seen it?
That like binge watched the whole thing. Like, it was funny because I started watching it with Saf, and then she was like, it got to like she fell asleep, and it got to red light, green light, and up until that point,
first episode, you mean?
Yeah. Well, they're like an hour episode. They're like an hour episode, aren't they, give or take? Yeah. So like she fell asleep, and I carried on like watching it. And then she woke up, and I went, I'm not sure this one's going to be for you, because up until that point, it was kind of mundane, wasn't it? And then out of that, it's like, bang, let's start slotting people like crazy.
It was like I could see that happening anyway. I'm just going to change my name actually, just because the Rat and Roddy show.
Oh, awesome!
Boom. Yeah, I was going to say I kind of have you ever seen Battle Royale?
No, I think you were talking to me about this, weren't you?
Talking about the age difference between us and what kids or like even my son watched this, my eldest son, which is still too young to watch it, so I won't dwell on that. But it was a huge playground thing. They'd all heard of it. They were all talking about it with their mates and about TikTok and memes and everything as like obviously as it launched or after a week after it launched. And I'm like, I bet you it's like Battle Royale. And a Battle Royale was basically very similar in terms of it was a group of school. God, it was years ago now. I think it was 2000 and early 2000, if that. So we're talking about 20 years ago, 20 years ago, give or take. And it was one of those where it was a foreign film. You didn't watch many of them. You didn't have Netflix as much as you had now. In terms of like, there was just this film called Battle Royale, and everyone was just like, oh, have you seen this film? And it might even be older. I can't even remember now. It was a while back, but it was a case of, oh, there's this foreign film out, and it's a group of a school class that go on a. I'll have to watch it again to just remind myself, but they went on a trip, a school trip. They were in a coach, and they were all gassed, just like they are when they're in that car, and then they wake up and they're on an island, and essentially they've all got neck braces on, and they are basically told they are to play a game, and there is only going to be one survivor, and basically.
So it's basically the guy who wrote it then is basically ripped off like Running Man.
Yeah,
that.
Essentially, I think that's the premise. Is he's taken inspiration, from that film, but made it slightly different because obviously it is. But it's very similar, and I knew that as soon as they were kind of there, I was like, oh, obviously. Shit's going to go down. They're going to start shooting and that. So I could see that. Like that wasn't too much of a surprise to me.
I don't think I can remember Well, actually, I suppose when you look at Netflix, you've had like these viral like trending shows go absolutely nuts. Where like back in the day, if someone said to you, right, you're going to watch an overdubbed Korean film, like, and it's gonna be an absolute smash, you'd have been like, fuck off, like Money Heist, like really badly dubbed, but everybody dived on it.
I watched Money Heist. I also watched Lupin when they're dubbed. Now, I've watched a load of foreign films. If you've ever seen Infernal Affairs, have you ever seen that?
I don't know if I have. No,
it's a really good one. I think it's Korean. It's definitely Asian. But it's. Have you seen The Departed? With
is that Leonardo DiCaprio?
Yes.
And I feel like I have, but I don't know if I have.
The Departed was a big film, but that is literally a carbon copy of Infernal Affairs, right? What's the one set in Brazil that everyone's seen?
Narcos.
No, not Narcos.
Because that's Mexico.
Kid is it was a Google it. What was it called? I swear it was Brazilian, like it wasn't Hand of God. City of Men. Is that the one? City of God. Hand of God, City of Men. City of God was the one in 2002. And again, that was like one of those where it's like, I've got to watch it because it's so popular, but it's foreign. And the problem is, any film that's dubbed is shit. Like I didn't watch Squid Games with dubbing, with it dubbed. I literally watched it in the language, but read the subtitles.
Did you?
Yeah, absolutely. Have you not? If you watch it's so much better when you watch it in their own language. It is because instantly a dubbed film or television series is instantly shit because it's dubbed.
I would fall asleep. Like if I'm reading.
Seriously, watch a film where it isn't dubbed and it's just in a foreign language, but you're reading it. But honestly, it does make a difference. Like Lupin was the same. I watched it, I was like, oh fuck no, this is shit. And then I was like, why am I watching it dubbed? Like put it on the normal one. And it does, there is a difference. You do feel like it's a better quality watch or a better quality film or TV show. I switched off, was the one you mentioned, Money Heist. I switched that off because I watched it in dub and realized I've got to give it another go. We'll watch it actually. But yeah, it does.
Spanish? Is it Spanish? Spanish.
Joe, is it Spanish? Yeah. So you've got to watch it without the dubbing because it does have an effect. Seriously, it does make you think it's a better film. I personally, anyway. So,
well, I know what's happening now, so there's no point.
But yeah, that's the other thing. You obviously got to concentrate on like you're reading it.
So which Squid Game would you have nailed without actually having to sacrifice anybody?
To be honest, I probably would have been shot on the first one. Like, seriously, I don't think I could stand still, or I would have been moving too much, or I wouldn't have made the line. I would have shit myself so much that I would have gone so slowly and ran out of time. Having said that, if I had crossed the first one, I definitely would have nailed the tug of war. If I had someone brainy telling me what to do.
Yeah.
I would have died on that sugar one, the cutting the sign out.
Oh yeah. The memes on that are legendary.
I know which one you're on about, yeah. Loads of businesses are putting their logo up to that meme, aren't they?
Yeah.
Going on, if this was on, but it's clever.
I did that one for mine actually.
Clever marketing, but yeah, we all know the funniest. It's just like, that's obvious. That's going to happen.
Yeah.
I can't remember what other one there was. There was obviously the first one.
I don't understand, right? Why the glass panes?
Yeah.
Why, like, they were reachable from the platform that you were on, right? You could have quite easily laid down and slapped one of those panes to see whether it would have taken, because a normal piece of glass, like based on them jumping on it and then it giving way, would have 100% smashed if you'd have just twatted it on the edge.
Like it could have been a little bit more like brainy.
Or walked down the tram tracks that were either side of the
because the whole thing is just get across, isn't it?
Yeah, or at least stand on that bit and stamp on the glass before you actually make the move to see whether it's going to go or not.
Or just look, that guy that looked turn off the lights. And
I'd even just took my shoe off and just slapped the glass, and it would have broken if it was just a normal bit of glass.
So you would have nailed that one.
Yeah, I would have nailed that one.
I'd probably the tug of war. What was it? The marble one.
I'd have just nicked them.
That's.
Or did you have to win them though? That was the thing. Did you have to win them?
Yeah, you got to win them. To be honest, actually, talking about that, would you have, if you were in? I know it's hypothetical and it's a bit difficult to answer, but consider that you've been let out to go home. Would you have come back and done it?
No.
Because if you think about it, if life's that shit, right, and you've gone through one of those games, like you've seen everyone just been shot, and you get a chance to go home, and you think, right, the choice is I can go back because I still owe debt. Now you're absolutely willing to kill someone to survive, knowing that's what's going to happen if you go back to earn that money. So what's the difference between you plucking up the courage to go and either kill the people that you're in debt to, if they're individuals, or figure out a way of getting money in the real world because you've obviously got the balls to go back and play this game and knowing that the chances are there's going to be consequences.
Yeah, the risk the risk doesn't, like the probability, because it is essentially chance, isn't it? At the end of the day, like, because you don't know what you're going to have to do, you don't know if you're going to be good at what it is that you have to do, and the stakes can be incredibly high. So it's almost like rolling a dice on a 50-50. So you just wouldn't. And
I don't get the husband and wife going back, because that's a bit silly, isn't it? Really?
Yeah.
One of them are going to have to die. I didn't get how they didn't realize that there is only ever going to be one winner. So like, if we both go back, then guaranteed that one of us are going to die.
Or maybe that was their logic.
What?
Like, at least one of them would survive and they would still get the money.
Yeah, it could be that, I suppose.
But coming back to the point of like the dubbed thing and all that, I can't understand why it's gone so nuts in terms of viral, or is it just literally like I'm
going to show you now. That's what I'm literally looking up right now. Right, there are. It's not to do with the dubbing. I think it's one of the
shock factor.
Yeah, it could be. It's like, to people that haven't seen other films like it, it's quite original. Like there aren't many that.
But you could argue that like it's kind of Hunger Games-ish without the major budget, or
yeah. But I also think that whole kind of kids game, that whole nostalgia of and the freakiness of the way the show was done. But one thing that stood out is the way they symbolize it, that makes it memorable.
Yeah. Like
the triangle, the square, and the circle is absolutely everywhere.
Yeah.
In the whole show. It's
almost like brand, if you're looking at it from a business point of view, it's almost like brand continuity and consistency, isn't it?
It's full on. That is exactly what it is. It's full on branding, the way it's in the title, in the logo. It's on their the business cards. It's on the
masks
they wear. It is pretty much everywhere. I'm watching it when I watched, because my son watched it after me, and I caught him watching it a few times, and I sat down, which is watching the same episodes again. and I'm trying to like look to see how subliminal that was, and then it's everywhere. But now, if you did that on anything, those 3 signs, instantly you would know what it was. So it's made it memorable in that sense.
I suppose if you look at the different, like I thought the like the kind of cinematography of it was quite clever in how you had, like, if you looked at the camera, if you looked at, I suppose, the footage of before they're in the game or when they're not in the game versus when they're in it, it's very like bright neon colors, like super, like almost HD. And then you look at like the mundane drab kind of gray, like if you look at the different like color patterns based on in the game and outside of the game, it's like vivid versus like super mundane, like
when they're out, when their normal day lives are depressing and grey and rainy, and then when they go in there, they've got all these different colors,
like the pink suits, like all that kind of stuff.
Definitely,
it's clever.
It is. Yeah, there's all these different things, and it is just a kind of, for kids, I think it's just like, not kids, but youngsters watching it. Because like, even I coached my youngest team football on Saturday, and I lined them up and said, like, they all had a football, and then basically my eldest son would be the the doll or whatever that thing is on the end. I said, have you ever played red light, green light? And everyone was like, yeah, I've heard of it. And I guarantee none of those kids had heard of it beforehand. And half of them were like, oh, Squid Game. I'm like, they're fine.
Remember when we were at school, it was like Mr. Wolf or something along those lines.
What's the time, Mr. Wolf? Yeah. Red light, green light. And
they even played that on Love Island.
Yeah.
Did you see?
Yeah, I did, yeah.
Like they even played that on there, which is
like
weird.
The reach that it had, it's just phenomenal in terms of it. You know, not only we're talking about, like, they're 5 years old, these kids, right the way through to them when you look at like the adults that are watching it and you think, would you do that if you were in debt? Or, you know, how would you tackle each one of those challenge? Everyone was a challenge. And I think one of the things that I was like, okay, get it, you know, all this. And then the second episode is like, oh, you didn't expect them to vote to go away. You expected them to vote to stay, because then you'd think, oh, well, the show's over. But they all got sent home.
Yeah.
And the whole idea is, well, actually, they all chose to come back. It wasn't as if they were forced.
Yeah.
And then you've got, for me, that tug of war episode where you're like, they're fucked. Like, how are they going to win? And that old guy going through like the system and the strategy. And then you've got the typical villain in it. You got a couple of villains, but apparently the woman, you know, the older woman in it, who everyone thought she was going to die because she didn't have a partner for marbles.
The nutty one. Yeah,
apparently, like, the dubbing and the translation for her was really off.
Right.
Apparently there was loads of complaints saying that they made her sound a bit dumb and thick, when actually her character's quite clever and was quite likable.
Right.
That I never know, because obviously can't speak Korean.
Do you think like the when you look at, I suppose, the narrative that they brought after, about how long it took him to get it to market and all that kind of stuff, do you think that had more of an acceleration effect on it trending and taking this, you know, this kind of upward?
I don't think it did. I think the thing for me was the fact that it hit the playground quicker. Like, it was something that kids were talking about, and I think it happens. It happened with us when we were young. Like, you know how, like, even now there's stories of stuff that you hear, or games that you play, or things that you do in the playground that is pure viral at its naturalist form, which is people just talking about it, and, you know, the Tamagotchi or the Doom bands or yo-yos, or, you know, it's that kind of essence of childhood kind of. And because I I saw it loads of times on Netflix, as in like it's there, it's whatever, it's advertised, it's promoted, and I was just like, oh, okay, another show, and you just go through them. But it wasn't, for me anyway, it wasn't until like everyone was talking about it from my kids' point of view, and I'm like, hang on, isn't that like an 18 or whatever, or 15 or whatever it was? I was like, how are you guys talking about it? And I think it's because it went viral there and through memes and TikTok videos and stuff like that I kind of saw the attention on it, but not necessarily. I literally only heard about the fact that it took this guy 10 years to get it on, and he had to sell his laptop and all the other stuff. I only found out about that after I'd seen it, and it wasn't actually that long ago. That didn't even come into mind. I was just
that's also not necessarily a particularly standout kind of story when you look at like historically how long it takes for someone to get their show piloted and all that kind of stuff. I don't think that's necessarily, but I just wonder whether they had those sorts of things in the locker. Like I don't know whether the whole thing was like a really well crafted launch strategy,
or whether it was luck,
or whether it just caught fire because a bit like I suppose the what they called loom bands or whatever they were called. These little that the guy made millions and millions off like little rubber cut off
spinners, loom bands, yo-yos, all these things that just catch.
Yeah,
no one knows why. Like I think it was the fact that it was the simplicity of the branding and it made that, but also.
Or is it kind of like when you try and explain it, because it is so nuts, people just go, oh, you have to watch it. I can't really explain it. You have to watch it. Do you know what I mean? So like, if I was like, Roddy, have you seen this? It's absolutely amazing. It's completely nuts. I can't even explain to you how you just have to watch it.
Yeah.
Like that's different to me, like going through and explaining something that kind of sounds a little bit like the Hunger Games, or you go, oh, it kind of sounds like Battle Royale or whatever, rather than going, it's that wacky. It's nuts.
It was the wackiness that got the attention as well. The name Squid Games, for example, the characters in it, they were all kind of a bit loose, should we say?
Well, yeah, because when
they're a little bit mental.
Well, when you look at things that have like really, like when you look at, I suppose, things that have like really taken off, like what shows would you say are like just absolute like brutes of shows that have just gone nuts? Like things like Ballers, Billions, all the shows that I like. When you think about them, like the characterization, Friends, for example, characterizations are so strong, that you can't help but kind of build that relationship between the character and the watcher. Whereas when you're kind of watching Squid Game, I don't think I think other than empathy for the old guy, I don't think there's that much, like you don't really care what happens to
there isn't, obviously Friends is a long haul show where you had series after series. I know there's probably another Squid Games coming, whether that's already written or that they haven't even wrote it yet, I don't know. But yeah, there wasn't a huge amount of character building. There was only really the main guy, obviously, the old guy that people felt sorry for because he's really old and he's in it. But then I suppose you've got the young girls in it, not mainly the one that lasted in the final three, not necessarily the one that killed herself. So those characters, they do have a variety of characters that you can relate to or connect with. I suppose there is that. Joe, why did you start watching Squid Games?
I guess I just saw so much on Twitter.
So it was just the fact that it was popular and everyone was talking about it.
Like, you've got to watch.
So Joe's a Twitter guy when it comes to platforms. So again, that's
are they even still a thing?
If it's a trend, it is a thing.
Twitter? Twitter's still a thing.
It's Gen Z. If it's a thing, it's a thing. Like,
wow, man.
Like,
has it come full circle or something?
I don't think it's grown, but then I don't think it's died in a way of like funny Vine or Clubhouse or things like that. I think it's always going to be a thing. I just don't think it's expanded into Instagram. Have just grown phenomenally. TikTok have.
We should do an episode on.
It's easy to say Facebook. Is Facebook still a thing? It's easy to say that, but Facebook is still the biggest
and growing as well
interactive platform on the planet.
I just find that interesting that Gen Z's like on Twitter, and that's their jam. Do you know what I mean? That would be an
interview. I was like,
well, so we don't obviously have a tangent, and we can come back to that. That would be an interesting thing to discuss. Actually, like I've supposed got my own thoughts around it based on, with respect, Joe, the Gen Z attention span. I mean, that lends itself perfectly to
to Twitter. It lends itself perfectly to all the latest ones, doesn't it? If you look at Snapchat, Twitter,
but there's no real media. Like there's no real sort of, like if you look at Snapchat, Twitter, it's all based on visual. Everything's visual. There's no real like message interactions, which is messaged through the medium of video, isn't it? Whereas Twitter is.
I think it's actually because of how you use the platform and who you are as a personality. Like Joe, Joe will agree with me on this one. Well, you might not. If you don't, please say. But like, Joe doesn't want to come around here on camera. So Joe's not that person that will possibly take selfies of himself or do Snapchat videos. Whereas, and it's like, I use Twitter purely just if anything's going on, if anything's trending, I go on Twitter before I go anywhere else. If there's a traffic jam and a shooting down the road, the first place I'll go is Twitter. So it's like for news and finding out information, but then it's also for people that like to really just pipe up and say something really quickly and are happy to have a public conversation. So, and Joe, you don't necessarily tweet on there, but you use it to find information, or do you tweet?
I can't remember.
So he doesn't tweet on it. He doesn't use it to. He doesn't.
So it's almost a bit like more of like an updated instant social news feed sort of thing.
Yeah, I that's the only reason I use it. I don't tweet, although I should. I probably will for the company and do stuff more. I used to be addicted to Twitter. And I had a decent following, and I just took it off completely. So I just found myself having so many conversations online with so many different people that I forgot about the people that are actually real in life. So that's why I come off it for that profile. But I've since set up another profile with fuck all followers, but I look at it more from a point of view of what's going on in the news. I love it when something like a boxing match is on, and I just want to find out what other people think of this fight, or if someone says something or someone's done something, I'll use it for that, or what's trending and what's news.
Interesting to see what it says about Squid Game, like whether that's still as highly trending as it has been or was, or
I think we'll look at it, but I think it's a case of is it just more the fact that stuff comes and goes so quickly. Like it's already I don't even know if it's still in the top 10 of Netflix, for example. I
saw last night actually. Yeah, it is.
It is, yeah. So it's in the top 10, but it's going down as more stuff come on, and it's the same with all kind of news, isn't it?
Well, it will get pushed as well because you've got new all the series that couldn't be launched due to COVID for not filming. So things like Dynasty, all the things that were put on the back burner that had got a bit of a cult following.
Do you watch Dynasty?
Oh mate, it's ledge. Like if we're looking at characterization, like that is a perfect example. Or it got to stay up to date with pop culture, right? You know, like relevant or irrelevant.
Like I watch You. Have you seen You?
Yeah, seen them all. Yeah.
We
binge watch that pretty much.
Freaking amazing. It's just funny. They're all kind of different, the three series, but I thought that was quite funny.
Did you ever watch You and just think, fuck, I actually know people that are like you? Although you see the characterization of like this socio-psychopath and just think, oh my god, there's far too many red flags in some people that like actually point straight to like, what you're doing.
It does make me think, shit, anyway, like, could that person be a killer? could that person actually go through with it? And you think, who do you know that could be? Because I just love the way you just constantly knowing what he's thinking.
I thought the last series, though, like the one that's just been released, it seemed to be a lot more like goofy than the dark original. Like the first one with the bookstore and all that kind of stuff was a bit more dark and what have you. It's kind of got a little bit pedestrian and humorous towards the end.
Even the second one, if you like, when I was watching the second one, I think it was like halfway or sort of 3/4 of the way through. I was like, it's gone into a bit of a soap opera type like feel to it. Like you feel like you're watching, you know, a series where there is, you know, you're on series 10, 11, 12, whatever, you know, it's one of those where you can just see it going on, and then it kind of just goes full on psycho mode again. My wife,
like if you look at that versus like if you look at arguably the production, the characterization, the cinematography, how it's shot, and like that's a big budget like show. And then you put that at the side of Squid Game, and like really, like you should have gone like stratospheric.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Yeah, it doesn't. That.
Do you think that that's down to the like when you look at it? There's no kind of. It's not a gamification kind of playground conversation, is it?
Like there's not. It's not always a case of Don't get me wrong. If you watch, you know, the new Avengers coming out, and you know they've blown absolutely multiple millions on it, whatever, you know it's going to be a popular film because of the series, but then that's not always a guarantee, is it? Like look up, do you remember Blair Witch Project? Yeah, that was like budget, like absolute budget, but
they tapped into like the thing with Blair Witch, and I love Blair Witch, apart from it like gives you a bit of like motion sickness at the time, but it taps into like and maybe this is where Squid Game got it right, is that it taps into people's most primal kind of behaviors, in Blair Witch, namely being fear of the unknown and uncertainty, because you never until right at the last 2 seconds or whatever, you don't actually ever see anything, do you?
No, you don't.
It's all letting your brain fill in the gaps of what you think is going to happen. And I suppose that's a little bit like where Squid Game is concerned, is automatically you go, shit, how would I play this game? Or how would I, and you put yourself in first person within that kind of thing. Whereas
there is definitely an ingredient to making something successful, right? But I don't think there is a science to it. There's an art. There's not a science to it, because you could say, right, okay, we've done this, and this, and it could still be an absolute flop. And I think there are certain things like nostalgia, which comes from, you know, past memories, like you mentioned, like, and things that happen. So like this one having kids games in it, or even the nostalgia, which is quite funny, is the connection between those three symbols and a PlayStation.
Yeah, that was clever.
And then I think, like, when you look at what's the other one that's full of Stranger Things? It's all set like around the 80s time, and that was really popular with a certain age group, as well as it being a group of kids, so it connects with that younger generation, and then you've got this whole kind of fantasy.
I wonder whether that is the sweet spot when you look at those kind of things, in that like you now have people who are within. So like I'm a child of the 80s, like obviously 81 or whatever you. So like growing up through that 80s and kind of 90s, like I'm interested and have the financial ability to actually invest back in those things that are now like coming through. Do you know what I mean? So like having lived through the time, there's an interest in kind of looking back and being interested in it, can obviously afford to watch it because you're watching it on Netflix or something along those lines. So maybe that's kind of like the sweet spot that these things are going for, that kind of upper millennial kind of nostalgia piece. Same with kind of Dynasty. I know Dynasty was sort of mid 80s, wasn't it? And they've even done things like remastered Baywatch, like all these kind of stuff to like put you back in that kind of
you go through that frames. But certainly if you're targeting that industry, because I think that was the biggest kind of. We lived going to video shops.
Yeah, Blockbuster was a thing
before Blockbuster. Yeah, like the they would be, for me. I was excited by the fact that there would be a video van that would come.
Yeah.
Or you would be literally you you go to a video shop and you just literally look and you could pick anything. And like the amount of videos and films in that era that come out, again, that's a separate episode in itself, just talking about films of the 80s. But things like that have an effect when they put them on now, and it doesn't have to be 80s. It's just pure like things of nostalgia, as in things that pull up your childhood memories.
Yeah,
popular, but also those kind of shows do have that kind of childhood, regardless of whether you're a child now or you were a child 20 years ago, you would relate to it. And that's why I think those kind of programs work, like the super popular ones, because they do reach out to adults and children, and it's mass audience then.
It's something to think about, like actually, what kind of strategies are businesses using to capitalize on that kind of, because I'm trying to think of like businesses that are kind of coming through at the moment or have come through. I suppose even when you look at things like what Bezos and Musk are doing and all that kind of stuff, like from the era of like space travel, like they're from the era of like first man on the moon, that kind of thing. So it makes you wonder like how much of a part that's played in shaping their companies, I suppose.
Their brand, their advertising, their marketing, who they are, that kind of stuff. You mean?
Yeah, more so for that, them wanting to colonize other planets and all that kind of stuff. Where you think about like shows from back then, like Star Trek, Star Wars, all of that stuff. There's so much like space travel. I mean, I remember growing up in the 80s playing with something called Starcom, which was like all like the like little magnetic men and all that kind of stuff in the the spaceships and all that kind of jazz. So it kind of makes you wonder like whether they're kind of trying to take people on that style of journey as well, and being able to market it based on referring back to that whole childhood thing.
Yeah, because it's appealing, isn't it? And it is.
But it's like Blair Witch. It's that like it's the unknown. It's like that, like your brain does the rest for you, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's like a subconscious thing, isn't it? To follow or get involved or buy or whatever it is that you're trying to do. Watch, like it just becomes a subconscious thing because it's a decision made on past emotions, like past experience, which is kind of what most of us do anyway. In terms of making those, like, do we watch that or not? If you've got a good experience of it, then you tend to do it. But,
yeah, I think that's why things like when we look at things like computer games, for example, why things like Grand Theft Auto and all that kind of stuff has had such a long run at what it's doing. Because like I remember Grand Theft Auto when it was like literally, can you remember like the bird's eye view?
It was bird's eye view. It was like
you'd like run over someone, and it was almost like the equivalent of like basically a violent Frogger on it. Like, so like you had like
I didn't like it when it was that game because of I don't know, maybe it was just because it was like that. But then when they brought out it's a GTA 5.
It's Liberty City.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But gone off on a tangent with Squid Games.
We haven't kind of gone off on a tangent because the narrative is still there based on like what people have
how the hell has that show become popular? Like that is it, isn't it? And it's like if you could bottle that as an ingredient, but I don't think I don't know whether there is there an ingredient that you can literally go, right, if you absolutely do that, it will guarantee popularity. Because
do you think also though, if you were like, let's say Netflix didn't put it on their top 10 whatever, and they just put it into the Hulu of You know, like, 'cause you can find some all sorts of wacky stuff on Netflix, can't you? If you look, but like, would you stumble across it had it not been in that top 10?
Yeah, I think that top 10 has to be. I'm sure that top 10 is like actual. They will put something out there. There must be like not an algorithm or a system where they'll put something out there. And if it gets, there must be like metrics like watch time, or
maybe they do like what Facebook does, which is show different people a different version of Netflix and just see what bites. So like, I might be seeing.
Well, they would do that, yeah. Like, I know that, like, they'll do it based on your wish list, your preferences, what you've seen before. But then that top 10, surely the top 10 is pretty much a trend of what people are watching. I don't think they're doing.
I suppose it has to be, because like, I see kids programs on my top 10 and stuff like that, and I wouldn't have clicked on any of that.
If it's super popular, they have to put it in the top 10, but they know that if it is gaining some sort of traction, it goes there. And I think it could have easily been like, again, if it was a shit program, if it didn't have whatever elements it had that made it popular, then it would have just stayed underground like most most shit shows do.
For like the UK as well, like the UK love an underdog hero's journey. Like, and
the weird thing is it is not just, and this is the mad thing, it's like we're talking about the UK, America, China, Japan, Argentina, like you just roll off like 10, 15 different, completely different cultures, right? And everyone's like, oh, you've got to pivot and, to suit a culture, or who are you targeting and all that. But this show was, Google it, like, was it 20, Joe, can you Google how many countries that thing was popular in? Like, literally how many cultures, like how it became popular in so many different cultures. That's what I'm trying to say. It's like
it topped the charts in more than 80 countries.
More than 80 countries. So like, it wasn't just a thing of like, oh yeah, that's good in that, it did really well in Japan, and UK, but like that is worldwide. So it's like, if you find out what that algorithm is there, what that ingredient, what those things are for that to be popular worldwide, is just ridiculous. And like, you are talking like 5-year-old freaking kids know about it when they shouldn't really know about it. Yet also, majority of adults have seen it, obviously. So
I would like to actually speak to. I'd love to actually speak to someone who knows, like the film world and all that kind of stuff, and just what their views on why it just became such a crazy success. Because I mean, once you've got memes out, I mean, that's it. Is like, it's a license to print money.
Yeah, get yourself a meme and you're golden. But then this was there is popular, and then there is boom. Like, wow. And that's the thing. You don't. Like, you think Fast and Furious, right? Face of it. It's kind of, some people are like, what the fuck, it's terrible. But it is the biggest grossing franchise in the world. And again, it's got a certain set of ingredients that essentially every whatever, whether it's every sequel has, it's essentially the same thing, just repeated.
That's almost like a cult. It's kind of like a cult following, isn't it? Based on.
And that's it again. Like, is Squid Games a cult, or is it a one-off? What's the word? Anomaly. Is it just like
the kind of thing?
Yeah. Is the second one going to be an absolute flop, and so on? You need to kind of look up. Like, I'm not analytical enough, but if you looked up, you picked a collection of these, monster films, television shows. Is there something within all of them that literally are in common?
Well, there is at the moment. It seems to be if you put The Rock in something, then it's a license to print money.
It'd be in the sequel of Squid Games.
yeah. It'd be the red light, green light animal.
In it. But then even like, do you remember when Matrix came out? Matrix was phenomenal. Is it just because it's slightly different and slightly original, but then it's also got these other things? I don't know. That's an interesting study to find out what
makes you think, doesn't it? Like, so like there's for people who watch it with you know, a little bit of, I suppose, intelligence behind them. They understand like the social experiment kind of angle that it's trying to pinpoint, I suppose.
Because there's like obviously the story arc to it, but then there's also how it's delivered from a brand point of view, because that could have made the difference. Characterization, as you said, like, you know, I remember listening to, I don't know whether it was the Friends Reunited thing, but they were talking about how they chose those characters in Friends, and you know, it took them ages to pick certain ones, and other ones, I know Ross was, for example, written for David Schwimmer specifically for him, that character, and things like that. So looking at it from that point of view, and again, it's like those characters weren't that strong. Most of them aren't that memorable. I suppose, like you said, the old guy and a couple of others, but then I felt that the VIP thing was just absolute, just shit. Like, I just didn't get that whole VIP thing with that game, and how bad those actors are and stuff like that. So is it that or not? You know, there's just so many different elements to it that would be worth figuring out.
Maybe we need a part 2 when we've actually, if we get some answers. Let's get some Squid Game answers.
Get some Squid Game answers in it, yeah. Like
maybe game in itself.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome.
Who knows, mate? Well,
I think we're about there.
Yeah, definitely. I think we should talk about Netflix as a whole as well next week.
Yeah.
And look at the. Have you watched?
Look to get paid just to like watch Netflix shows and just chat about them.
Well,
like some of the.
I'm up for. I watch fucking Netflix like a madman because it's
my decompression tool.
Switch off. Yeah, I literally switch off by going, right. Okay, I'm going to watch it. Spend time with the missus.
Like I think I always have an element of guilt also. I think any business entrepreneur, whatever, has an element of guilt when they like watch TV or whatever.
Do something that isn't productive.
Yeah. But you know, at the end of the day, I think half the and this is another episode, half the bullshit that these fucking Instagram entrepreneurs and all this kind of bollocks talk about is. Yeah, the amount of guilt that is put on business and entrepreneurs and business women, and I think it's just absolutely
guilt and work hard. Like you've got to. There is no other way but giving it. Like,
you're not getting up at 4 o'clock, drinking virgin yak's milk on the side of a fucking mountain whilst like meditating in an ice bath with Wim Hof himself. You know, if he's not fucking spunking in your ear and all that kind of stuff, then you're not going to be successful. Sorry. And
can we talk about that one literally next week? I think that's definitely something that I want to talk about.
Yeah. In fact, we'll go on actually to some of these ridiculous Instagram like business motivational quote. Talking to Gary V, but even he, like, if you look at his position now, it's like a polar opposite from where it was. Like he's kind of like softer. He's gone down like kind of love and enjoyment kind of route, where originally it was like hustle grind, D-Rock fucking film me.
And that's all you got to do. Yeah, I know. And that's the thing. I think there's a balance, man. There's definitely a balance. And I used to do that. I used to sit there and go, what am I doing watching this? This is so unproductive. I should be working. I should be doing that. But then actually now I'm like, do you know what? I absolutely need time to either do nothing or time to just be entertained in a way that isn't to do with work and real
And I use that. I don't even really like the term entrepreneur, but I will use it just because it's a broad, generic. Say again.
I hate the term entrepreneur, but I have to use it because there's no other word that kind of describes.
Yeah, but the only reason why I don't like it is because so many wankers are using it, and they've never started anything other than a fucking social media post. That's why, or they've never made money out of nothing. They've never created something out of nothing, which for me is what an entrepreneur does, creates something out of nothing, irrespective of whether that's franchise, taking on the franchise. They're still creating something out of nothing. They're selling a product, service, or other, and it's something I'm quite passionate about. But yet they've got all of the advice, but not treaded the path, in any kind of format. Or they've gone and bought some fucking, I don't know, shitty course online and tried to convince people they're a coach, and then coach people to do stuff that they've never done before in their frigging life. And this is just my frustration from being 10 years, 12 years, I suppose, in business, if I count the other two, and all the things that I tried before actually getting something going. I just think like half of the stuff that's on there at the moment is it guilts people into not doing the things that they set out to do in business in the first place, which was to create more time and just do what the fuck they want when they want.
Yeah.
It was like the counter to why you do what you do.
It's the whole, like Instagram, there's the Instagram and then there's the reality. It's like, oh, I want to be seen as that person, or I want to be known as that person. Yeah, I'm not willing to actually do whatever to be that person, if that makes sense. So I agree. I think there's that is 100% next week's episode is we need a name for it. Not like I hate the word entrepreneur or solopreneur or whatever preneur. Stick with the fucking preneur. I
think we've got to use it just for the
it's relevant. It's the term that people class themselves, but what is an entrepreneur, and what the message is going out to youngsters, because it is a not a trend, but it is something that, like, entrepreneurship, that word is a popular thing. It's like entrepreneurs are heroes now. Us growing up, heroes were movie stars, sports athletes, musicians.
Ironically, who most of them were. Like, you can't get a bigger entrepreneur than Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone, all of the action heroes of the day. Like, most people don't know that Schwarzenegger was a millionaire before he even set foot on a film screen.
Like, look at Jay-Z's one of the originals. He's gone from being just a music artist to an entrepreneur. Would you call them entrepreneur? That's the word. Serial. I'm not just an entrepreneur now. I'm not a millionaire. I'm a billionaire.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. So it is. Yeah, that is next week's topic, man. Definitely, 100%. We're on that. I just realised, have I got a meeting at 12 that I'm ignoring?
Why are you getting peppered?
I just keep No, I'm not. I actually booked this out till 12:30. I think that's a really good episode, though. Jolene's just disagreeing. He's going like this. Can it? You got to fucking...
Well, if you beat him up in the background, and I'll watch.
No, I think it's good. I think we're going to chuck it out there anyway. I like it because it's quite topical, and I said we can fucking hell, you can do a Netflix one every quarter if you want, because it's just about what's on next.
What's new on Netflix?
What are you watching right now? And if you say Dynasty again, I can't. I'm sorry, I can't. I just can't. I can do Love Island.
You see, things that I would watch.
I absolutely can. I if I don't watch it, I cuss it. If I do watch it and I get involved in it, I defend it. So
the thing is, like, for me, there has to be a balance, because like Saf won't watch. Like, if you clicked on my Netflix profile and clicked on hers, they couldn't be more like polar opposite. So
I haven't got his and hers. We've got her cousins, and we've got a profile on her cousin.
So
the kids have one, and we have one. Me and the missus have one, and it's funny when you look at the recommendations, because they're like half of hers and half of mine.
And that's the thing. So like, I can't like anything that I want to kind of watch is when she's like just rolled over and gone to sleep, and you know that's where like Billions goes on and all that kind of stuff. I mean, she would watch Billions and all that kind of stuff, but I'm on season 5 now. I'm too far ahead to like.
You finished it yet?
No, don't tell me. No spoilers, because I know that my best mate, he's binge watched it and what have you. So, what
about Succession?
No, he's giving me that one to go at. No.
Have you even started Succession?
No,
mate.
How many series?
It's just started season 3, so there's only 2 seasons. Multi-Emmy award winning. It's phenomenal for me. Like, since you even said this to me, she was like, "Oh, do you prefer it to Billions?" Because she knows I like Billions, and I was like, "I know." She goes, "Is it better than Billions?" And I said, "Yeah, it's better. I probably enjoyed Billions, but it is definitely better in terms of how deep and how well written it is, and the actors in it." And
I'll tell you what I did do when I had COVID. I took the Stars subscription, because like I just couldn't. One, I couldn't stay awake. 2, I just didn't want to do anything. Like, I mean, my business is done from my phone, but it's also done a lot on Zoom and face to face and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And the last thing I wanted to do was really talk to anybody for 10 days. 1, because my brain wouldn't work, and 2, I kept falling asleep like a narcoleptic.
Yeah, it's good.
The Stars. Because I like 50 Cent. I've got a lot of time for 50 Cent in his material and the things that, like, have you read his book, Hustle Hard?
It's on my list. I'm actually going through some of the ones you mentioned. I'm on the book that's behind you, Green Lights.
Amazing, isn't it? Do you like it?
I'm literally, I've got it on audio, and I've got an hour left, something like that.
So have you trained yourself? This is another podcast episode as well, actually. Have you trained yourself up to listen faster?
For some, I if they're really mundane, I have to speed it up.
I haven't broken ×2 yet. I'm on 1.9. Isn't it weird how 1.9 sounds like doable, but 2 is like too much?
It's like, obviously it does depend on the narrator, because some are really slow, and I'm just like, oh, shut up. I have to speed it up or just not watch it. I'm on for this one. I am literally on 1. I'm on, that's standard, right?
Yeah, 1 is normal. Yeah,
1 is normal, yeah. So but it's Matthew McConaughey talk, like,
yeah. So he's
him talking. So you kind of like feel like, he's just telling you stuff. You're listening intently.
Yeah,
he is. But
and like, you'll not meet a more incredible storyteller, I don't think, than.
Yeah, he is very, very good, isn't he? Albeit sometimes his accent just gets a little bit.
I'm all down with Texans, man. I should have been born in Texas, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But like my guns, my trucks, and
you're a true Texan.
My cigars,
bumper sticker.
Yeah. Yeah.
Note to self. It's funny. He is.
But well, don't do any more, because we need to do a podcast on books, definitely.
Yeah, well, again, we could do it on specific books and just have like 2 or 3.
Matt and Roddy's book review.
I can't remember half the shit. That's the thing. Whenever you're talking about movies, or I bet
I've listened to Green Lights 12 times.
Is it? Wow. I'm all right. Yeah, it's on like on the.
When you move up to quicker, when you get up to double speed, like, you've done it in half the time. So
yeah. And you've read it and listened to it. Yeah. Yeah, but I do that. I like, if I like what I've listened to, I'll buy it and read it.
I never scrim, or if I want a book, I buy it. Basically, is what I'm saying. I never like even think twice about buying a book, because I think it's.
Have you ever read the book whilst listening to it?
No, I haven't. No,
that's quite good. It's quite weird, because like I had a big book on. I can't remember.
I couldn't do that at 2 times speed.
No. But then at least you're kind of like. I was just wondering whether it sank in for me better, because I do tend to have to read a book at least twice.
Yeah.
Actually, really sink in. So I tried it once where I had the guy narrating it on Audible, but I was actually reading it as I was going.
Was it the exact same?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. Yeah, there was slightly.
Sometimes like they go off piece, don't they? Like on Audible, sometimes they'll go off. I know Grant Cardone.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say I'm a massive fan of Grant Cardone, but he's got some half decent material. Like he will often go off piece and stuff.
Yeah, same. The one that was good as well was.
You know what I was just thinking? Actually, we could get Sam to use some of these clips as pre.
Yeah,
you know, like how we did on mine, where you had like the snippet, the episode, like the tune of my thingy, and then we went into the episode.
And you go into it. Yeah. So that's why I thought like we might as well just carry on chatting about the stuff that we might be chatting about because we'll use them as clips. That's it. David Goggins one, Can't Hurt Me.
Can't Hurt Me, yeah.
Like that's more of like an interview style. So he's there.
That's been cleverly put together, to be honest.
Yeah.
So I've read that as well. Because that's almost a perfect example of how to use big pillar content in a wanna, but then to put it out as a book. I mean, what better way to write a book than just have someone interview you?
And it felt like a podcast as well, yeah. And it was like if you're going to write a book, there could be two versions of it, but I like the way that there's more context around each chapter because he's there and he's like interviewing him, going, you know, because you kind of sometimes when you read a book, you certainly like autobiographies, you're like, oh, I'd love to ask him this question, and a couple of times those questions have come out.
Yeah. I think it's a good way to write a book because, you know, it's almost like you're answering a frequently asked questions.
Yeah.
To be able to do it. Yeah, that's cool.
Mate. Sweet. I'm going to go and do some.
And most importantly, the new series of Cobra Kai is coming out in December, isn't it?
January.
Oh, is it January now?
I think it's January.
I thought it was December.
Let's have a look. Actually, it's December the 31st.
So technically, it's December. Yeah. It's out on New Year's Eve. Why would they put it out on New Year's Eve?
Because everyone's at home doing.
I could have sworn I saw it was December the 5th.
You wake up New Year's Day, you got nothing else to do,
and it's there.
Yep, season 4 coming on the 31st of December. Boom.
Oh, the only gutting thing is you get through them so fast because they're only 30-minute, 20-minute episodes.
Yeah, I'm like, that's the thing. I don't understand why people like Sky or I think Amazon as well, they haven't started releasing full seasons up front. I don't know why, because I'm a binge watcher. I say that. Like, there's times where I'm like, fucking go bed. Like, you can't carry on. But I will watch 4 or 5 episodes straight if I'm into it.
Is that because you think they want you coming back, or do you think that's down to a what's it like? Not delay, almost like the opposite of delayed gratification. It's kind of
Netflix are the only ones that do it, right?
Say again.
Netflix are the only ones that do it. I don't know if Amazon.
The full seasons.
Like literally just chuck it all at you at once.
Yeah.
I just get pissed off on
ITV, like they'll do it if they've got a drama or something like that. I think like we're watching Angela Black or whatever at the moment, and like you wait, you almost have to wait a week or whatever, and unless the whole thing's run, and then it's up on ITV Hub or whatever.
It's like obviously Succession's come back, but it's like on every week, fine. And then do you choose to just wait and watch them all at once, or like a 3 or 4 or whatever?
Or you wait till they're like 3-4 episodes in, and then you start back, and by the time you're actually wanting to binge watch, the rest is sort of caught up, maybe.
Yeah.
You know,
I just wonder why others don't actually give you the choice, because it's still all about viewing time. You're still going to watch it. So regardless of whether you watch it over the space of 10 weeks, 10 1-hour
schedule of content, like maybe they've just got like a schedule of content that, like, what's going to go in that time slot.
Go live, yeah, because it's live. It's a channel rather than it being Netflix, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. But if you haven't done, let's say, back to the Stars subscription on Amazon Prime, like, have you done Power?
Yeah, I've done Power on Netflix when it was on.
So on Prime, there's Book of Ghost, which is like the second.
Told me about this, yeah.
There's also BMF, Black Mafia Family, which is another one of 50 cents. And
what's the one with the one prior to American Gangster. Is that similar? Someone was telling me about that one. The bug. Someone Johnson, Bumpy Johnson, I think it was. Who's the character? That might be the Black Mafia one. I don't know, but it's based around a real like black gangster. But before,
I think that's BMF. Hang on.
Yeah, before it was set before, American Gangster, the film with Denzel Washington. It's the guy, like, obviously that's based on a real character, but it's the guy before him. I
don't know, like I've got stars. So Raising Kanan, that was good because that's Kanan from Power.
Yeah,
how he got to.
So like he's set like all prequels now and stuff.
Yeah. This is why like the guy's very, very clever. You haven't listened to his book yet, have you? So when you listen to his book, he does talk about how he got Amari Hardwick to play Ghost and all this kind of stuff, and almost turned it down. And
I've got it. It is next. Is on. Was definitely.
You need to get on it definitely because it's really. Are you talking about Godfather of Harlem?
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Harlem. Yeah, that's the one.
There's some really like on the Stars thing. There's some really good stuff.
You're promoting it now.
Yeah, well. I mean, I think it's like £4. Is it £4 a month? It's not much anyway.
I have to give up my Disney Plus for that then.
You can afford it. It's fine. But yeah, well, I've literally just been coming down through these titles, and like it's literally got me written all over it. It really has. Well, probably with the exception of Nip and Tuck. But yeah, some good stuff on here. 100%. Cool.
I'm gonna get on it definitely. Like Instagram, you wanna. There's the Instagram, and then there's the reality. It's like, I want to be seen as that person, or I want to be known as that person. Yeah, I'm not willing to actually do whatever to be that person. If that makes sense. So yeah, I agree. I think there's that is 100% next week's episode is